It begins with the Calgary Sun's Danny Austin, our longtime friend. Danny, thanks for stopping by today. Good to see you.
I'm thrilled, man. I'm so excited to be here talking to you guys. It's, we've had our ups and downs this season.
Yes, haven't we?
But ultimately, I mean, for people who don't realize, like Rod and I have known each other for a long time. A little bit of Twitter back and forth isn't such.
No, not at, well, actually, you didn't say this to me when you came in, but Darren told me that you were going down the hallway and you said, I didn't think Rod would speak to me again. You understand, Danny? I'm a sober coach. I get yelled at all the time, every day. It rolls off the duck's back. And I'm happy that you came down here to talk Calgary sports. And so if you don't mind, it's Stamps at Elks on Saturday. And we should start here. The mood in Calgary of the Stamps losing the Labor Day Classic at home to Edmonton.
I mean, it's been weird. This is something we sort of talked about. But after the Argos loss, after the Lions loss, there was anger there. People really were upset. They wondered why so many veterans were allowed to leave. Honestly, I got barely any reaction to this Labor Day loss. There seems to be a little bit of a sense of resignation and of just acknowledgement of where sort of this team is at in terms of the playoff picture. And, you're mad when you feel like, there's something big to play for and you let it slip away. I don't know if you're mad when you look at your team and say, well, we're 1-4. The playoffs are a long shot already. I didn't find there was anger. That was the one thing that was sort of missing after the Labor Day Classic. There was a lot of sort of sadness, but people seem to understand this is a young team, had a couple breaks, didn't go their way. They just haven't played well enough to win. And it's a huge uphill battle now that they may not be able to climb.
If you're the Stampeders, would you rather have them angry rather than apathy? Am I using the right term in that?
I wouldn't say apathy. I'd say resignation a little bit. I think you'd rather have them angry. This has just been such a weird season. I genuinely believe that they're better than a 1-4 team. And I also genuinely believe that doesn't count for anything. You win or you lose. This is professional football. It is really, really hard to win a game of football. So maybe it's one mistake here and there that cost them in those first two games against the Argos and the Lions. But you can't make those mistakes. Those mistakes, no one cares. In 2022, no one's going to look back at the 2021 Calgary Stampeders if they miss the playoffs and say they were close in a bunch of games. You win or you lose, and they're losing. So, you want the fans passionate and angry, but you start 1-4 in a 14-game season, people just aren't going to spend their emotional energy getting overly upset about it.
Yeah, right. I understand, but here's what I also understand, man. And you've lived here, would you say, 10 years?
Yeah, 11.
Toronto guy originally. And what I hear from the football fans in Calgary and Southern Alberta is it's all hockey, all hockey, all hockey, all NHL on the radio here all the time. So I think that to sit here and talk about Stampeders football would probably go over very well with our Alberta viewers here on Game Plus, I would think, and streaming. So because you're the beat writer and you're around the Stampeders all the time, I do, despite me banging on them, you understand it's the fun rivalry thing. I know they're the Cadillac franchise of the CFL. Why wouldn't we? So when they were picked 6th in the power rankings going into the season, I almost fell off my chair. I scoffed. Now they're 9th. I don't care what the power rankings say. The standings say 9th. So were the people voting on that? And I assume you were one. Were they on to something?
Well, I wasn't voting on that. I don't vote on CFL.ca. I would have had them higher. I would have had them sort of probably 4. I still, to be honest, going into the season, I think I stand by it. Had probably Winnipeg number 1, Hamilton 2, Saskatchewan 3, with the big caveat that that's awfully close. Right now, I might have Saskatchewan and Hamilton flipped. I do think the Bombers are the best team in the league. The Stampeders were very open, and I think that this is something that we need to give them credit for, that they were a young team. They let a lot of veterans walk. They needed a little bit of injury luck to sort of get these young guys they were really, really high on some time to adjust to Canadian football and sort of come in week 5 and week 6. By and large, that's sort of what they've been doing, and that's sort of what's happening. We've seen some young guys really step up and take big steps. The issue is, that Argos game, they played pretty well. They fumbled in their own zone. The Argos got a touchdown late and then got another field goal. The Lions game, they had a quarterback with a broken leg. It wasn't an ideal situation. You can go through every game. Rene Paredes normally hits that 50-yard field goal to win against the Bombers. They have been that close. But again, it doesn't matter. So whether this is according to plan or not in terms of the development of the team and whether they might make a run in the back half of the season, it's going to be tough with 3 games against the Riders, a game against the Ticats, and another game against the Bombers. But, they do have the potential. They're not that far off, but they needed to sort of squeeze out some of these wins that unfortunately became losses. So, and I think that's why there's not that much anger. People understand that this was supposed to be a development season where they peak towards the playoffs. But, the standard here is set. during the John Hufnagel era, the Stampeders, by and large, are the best team in the CFL year after year, whether they win the Grey Cup or not. From beginning to end, that's where they are, and they're not this year. So I think that people are outside of the market and inside of the market. We have to be honest in our assessments. We have to be fair, and we have to say this was not supposed to be the 2017 Calgary Stampeders, but there's problems there, and hopefully guys develop and take the step. But it may be too late.
Yeah, but is that, okay, it's very interesting what you're saying. Is that, when you say transitional year, the turnover in the head scout, that it's Cole Hufnagel finding players now, right? Because there's going to be a turnover there. Does it extend beyond Bo Levi Mitchell's broken leg? Is it as simple as you lose your starting quarterback, you can't win? Is it deeper than that?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we look back to the 2019 season, I mean, we can go back to 2018 if we want to include Alex Singleton.
Right. Lost a lot of guys.
Guys. Trey Roberson, Reggie Bagleton. But the reality is they went into this season, I would say, with a established, if not veteran, starter in every position except for there was one defensive end position. There was the middle linebacker position. And that was pretty much it, to be perfectly honest. Then Jamar Wall went down at Sam. Fortunately, they had Brandon Dozier who could step in. Fuller and Ormalade, who played the other defensive end position, went down. So they had to bring in Sean Lemon, who, Sean Lemon still may be a good player, but he's not the player he was 5 years ago necessarily. So they're not getting any pressure on the quarterback. That's a big problem. The middle of their D-line is very good. You've got Derek Wigman, Mike Rose, who have been exceptional. Darnell Sankey stepped in at linebacker, but you did lose Jamar Wall, who's your defensive starter, Charlie Power, or defensive captain, Charlie Power, who's, Rennie Paredes is the special teams captain. It's really Charlie Power, and then Bo Levi Mitchell. So there has been bad luck here, but I still think that the pieces are there. I mean, I watched that Edmonton game. I think Deshaun Amos is week in, week out, probably the best boundary corner in the league. He had a really, really bad game against the Elks. Guys have bad games, but the DB group is not necessarily playing up to the standard that you would expect. That's something Dave Dickinson was open about. Injuries have had an impact, but injuries have an impact on every team. I can't quite figure out what the missing piece is here. Defensively, I do think it's the defensive ends right now. But no, it's not just Bo Levi Mitchell. Jake Mayers played well enough for this team to win football games. We cannot place this on Bo Levi Mitchell's hurt. Right now, just the talent isn't playing up to the standard.
Yeah, but you've nailed it. They're the victims of their own success. They've lost too many players to the NFL and through free agency within this league. Rogers, Johan Breskison, all the guys that are over in Toronto right now.
If I can interrupt, I mean, Perdera Law was
another one.
Was their defensive end. They traded him to Toronto. It's across the board. They lost a lot of players. I mean, I would guess that the Argos have more players from the 2018 Grey Cup starting every week than the Stampeders. Mm-hmm. That was only 2 seasons ago. That's not that long.
Right. By the way, we got lots of time in this segment, but will you be able, Danny, to stay one more segment after this?
Yeah, sure.
Because I feel like there's a lot of things that I want to get to with you with the Flames. But before I go on, you've made the comments about me stirring it up. The night before the Stamps and Bombers met at IG Field, you tweeted that you were trying to find a way to say this was the nicest stadium in the CFL in Winnipeg in a way that it would rile up Rider fans. And boy, did you. Yep. Do you really feel that IG Field is the nicest stadium in the CFL?
I mean, if it's not the nicest, it's the second nicest. It is worth noting. I have this strategy sometimes on Twitter, sort of tweeting something out, and then I just reply to the fans of that fan base and say nice things.
Right.
So it's actually a way that I kind of connect with fans from other fan bases. But look, I believe there are things that I like more about IG Field than Mosaic. My favorite part of Mosaic, I stay at the Hotel Saskatchewan. I said this to you before the segment. There's nowhere I like rolling into more than Regina. Fans give you a little bit of a hard time because you're a Calgary guy, but they're generally pretty fun and they're happy to be there. You feel like a big deal when you're in Regina as a CFL reporter. And then I love that walk from Hotel Saskatchewan across the stadium. And it is an absolutely beautiful stadium.
Walked that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a walker. I try to get
good for you.
I try to get my steps in. Picking between those two stadiums is tough. I think location probably pushes Mosaic above IG. But man, the concourses at IG are great. They're terrific. And the food there, I don't know if it's better, but it's close. There are things I like more about IG, for sure.
Well, it's more affordable than IG.
You see that, real life isn't Twitter, and I'm so much more hesitant on a Saskatchewan.
Oh yeah. No. Well, it's so we view it as a Canadian nationally based show, but Bob Irving and I, the longtime voice of the Blue Bombers, we used to argue about which stadium was worse, Taylor Field or Winnipeg Stadium, and then we argued about which stadium is better. And I can say that they're definitely both great. Honestly, it's subjective. They're both fantastic stadiums, but my point was, you were going after Rider fan.
You got to go after Rider fan as a Calgary guy. And let's be honest, on the field, I don't have much to go after the Riders about right now. So I was 100%. I don't mind a little bit of trolling here and there, and I do it. And if you guys want to come back at me, I mean, I go every day to McMahon Stadium, which I have no problem saying is arguably the worst, maybe the second worst.
Decrepit.
Is brutal. And it needs to be fixed up. And I don't know that the current ownership is particularly interested in fixing it up. So, if I was in Regina or Winnipeg, I'd feel very proud. I also got to say that I just love going into Winnipeg. The media there are so great. You got guys who I know you love, like Darren Bombing, Ted Wyman, Bob, obviously. So those are two of, I'm from Toronto, so going home and seeing my family is obviously probably my favorite stop on the tour.
And I like BMO too.
It's a shame what's happened with that team and within the field in the stadium. But I love both stadiums, but I got to give Riders fans a little bit of a hard time, and they get to give it back.
I'm just pointing out I'm not the only one, Danny, that likes to get a reaction from people.
You and me might be right at the top of that.
Yeah, exactly. Now, we got about 90 seconds in this segment just to crack the lid on the Flames talk. Because are you officially a beat writer for the Flames? Or?
Yeah, on and off. I mean, it depends who's. For 2 of the last 3 seasons I have.
How shocked were you that they missed the playoffs last year?
2 weeks into the season, I sort of realized that was the direction it was going. I think it was a huge step back for this organization, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it. But the fact that they followed that season up with, I do not think that they are a better team right now than they were at the end of last season, and I'm really surprised. And I think if I was a Flames fan, I'd be really disappointed.
We'll talk about that and more. Stadiums, arenas, there's a lot going on in Calgary. Danny Austin, good enough to join us down here at the Best Western Premier Freeport in Calgary Airport.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of the Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.